Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now Desk. Thanks for joining us here on this Tuesday, June the 6th, just 8 o'clock here on our Tuesday morning. Taking a look outside, things look pretty good right now, but we did have a little bit of rain in some parts of the area earlier. You may have seen that. I didn't see any, but I heard that there was some thunder out there, a little bit of rain as well. So hopefully you were able to stay dry as you were waking up this morning. We are taking a look at some of our top headlines, the biggest stories going on around the CSRA, the two-state, the country even. But before we do that, I wanted to remind you guys to be sure to download our WRDW streaming app on your favorite streaming device, and also be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel on youtube.com, which is just WRDW News 12. We stream on there every day on both of those platforms. So that's a great way to stay up to date with what's going on in the community. And it's super easy to do, and it's free. So why not go ahead and do that? Let's get into our top headlines a little bit, with a lot of pushback at a North Augusta City Council meeting about plans for a new housing complex that would bring apartments and townhomes off of Martintown Road. The development, called The Hive, has already been approved. Back in 2006, developers pitched that idea, so it's been in the works now for almost 20 years. The plan coming to fruition now, and as Nick Veland reports, neighbors there are speaking up about traffic.
Yeah, well, the area off of exit 1 people are worried about is right here on Pinion Road, where it meets 5 Notch Road. This little neighborhood here, called Pineview Estates, has about 30 homes, and what they're worried about is this new development hooking in and routing all that traffic through their entrance. On Pinion Drive, you can hear the birds chirping, bikes pedaling by, and dogs being walked throughout the neighborhood, and the greenway that cuts right through.
We expected to have this to be our forever home.
Jean Norris says that this neighborhood makes her feel right at home.
The quiet neighborhood, the quiet, safe community that we feel here.
Now a new development scares Jean and the rest of those who live on Pinion Drive. Plans from 2006 gave developers the green light to move forward with an entrance to 250 homes in the back of the neighborhood.
It is just going to create, I would say, chaos. Too much traffic for a community, a neighborhood that was built 50 years ago. It was not initially built to sustain so much traffic.
This cut through is right next door to Jean, and developers say that the connection would bring a 15% increase and 310 cars per day, which brought dozens of neighbors to council tonight. Every neighbor signed a petition against the plan, but even with pushback, nothing was going to change the cut through.
Well, I wasn't here in 2006, and also some of the other residents, and it would never came into fruition.
And Jean doesn't want this to break up the quiet way of life they've been accustomed to. And council is saying that their hands are tied, and they did look at changing some other parts of the plan, including buffer zones like trees and fencing. But as for the entrance, neighbors will continue to fight and possibly take this to the Court of Common Pleas in Aiken.
Okay, thanks for the update there, Nick. The Aiken County Sheriff's Office says Stephanie Brown is in jail in connection with the shooting at a McDonald's in Graniteville Sunday. Deputies say 3 females beat up a minor outside the McDonald's before Brown fired a gun. The victim told deputies Brown shot at him and the bullet grazed his head. Brown is charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor, neglect of a child, and pointing and presenting a firearm. A Richmond County deputy is behind bars accused of bringing contraband into the jail. I forgot to pull up his mugshot. Let me do that real quick. There he is. Okay. The Richmond County Sheriff's Office says they got a tip. Deputy DeMondre Mahoney brought contraband into the Charles B. Webster Detention Center. Mahoney's facing 2 charges, including violation of oath by a public officer. Concern and questions from parents over repeat offenders. In this case, a Columbia County man caught and convicted multiple times after exposing himself in public over the years. Court documents show Michael Stevens' allegations of public indecency date back to 2018. He's been charged or convicted of public indecency on 2 different Walmarts and at a car wash. In the latest incident, he's charged with exposing himself at a Dollar General. Now he's behind bars without bond. Our Hallie Turner tells us that Stevens does not have bond this time, but the question remains, how did he get out of jail so many times?
Yeah, Laura, the DA couldn't say much on specific cases, but what he could tell me is it all comes down to how the court prosecutes the case. But for parents, that's not much comfort.
And I remember thinking, wow, it's really close to home. Number two, how was he unable to do that again?
This Columbia County mother wants to stay anonymous, but wants her concerns about cases like Michael Stevens heard. District Attorney Bobby Christine says,
public indecency, if done in a public place, is generally a misdemeanor. Upon a third conviction for that activity, it can be a felony.
But in certain cases, quote, prosecution issues can determine who ends up on the sex offender registry and who doesn't.
You can't enhance the subsequent or the third conviction to a felony if all three are sentenced on the same day. That's a prosecution issue.
That's how it went for Stephen. Even though in his past offense, he acted at 3 different places on 3 different dates. He was sentenced for all 3 at the same time in 2019, making his crimes not eligible for sex offender registry.
The offenders are typically quite intelligent. While on supervision, they don't reoffend, but when supervision ends, they do.
According to court documents, Stevens had to follow strict probation rules like having a curfew, avoiding schools. He also had to attend a sex addiction program, but the DA says these programs don't always show success.
The rehabilitative aspect of the criminal justice system has its least positive impact cases involving sexual deviancy and sexual criminality,
causing stress on parents.
The scariest thing as a mom is to know somebody like this gets put back out on the street.
Christine assures the community his office is working with the law to keep these offenders off the street.
We'll seek the longest period of incarceration followed by supervision as possible.
And DA Christine says he can't speak to how many cases they see like this, but they are there and they don't always make headlines. But along with the administration in Atlanta, they are all working together to stay after and in front of violent and sex crimes. As for Stevens, he remains behind bars and his next court date hasn't been scheduled.
Okay, thanks for that, Hallie. The city of Augusta is still clawing its way back after a cyber attack. Yesterday, the tag office posted a sign saying they're now accepting property taxes. As of Friday, they were not. Meanwhile, Central EMS was only operating in Augusta for a month before this cyber attack. Our Craig Allison with a look at the roadblocks they're facing.
That's right. While everything's down to radio communications, there's still no access to online medical records between here at Central EMS headquarters and the E911 center. A new dispatch system that was actually approved by city leaders months ago is on hold while cyber issues are still hitting the city. In with the new, out with the old. Central EMS says they are ready to get rid of the old flipbook systems for upgraded electronic systems that walk dispatchers through giving, on the phone, life-saving advice.
We have outfitted the majority of our ambulances with the equipment to receive through the computers.
When the cyber issues clear up, they can upgrade these systems. In the meantime, they're adding more staff and ambulances. 10 at peak hours now, 14 within the next week. Just under 100 workers working now, with 25 currently training at the AU Medical Center.
Is everything as far as we're concerned on the ambulances going as planned. We're on schedule. In fact, we believe we'll be ahead of schedule on standing the operations up as we had committed.
They've also almost finalized their new headquarter location, set to be off of I-520. So while the cyber issues Augusta has been faced with have slowed things down for radio communication, they say they're still making strides.
We're just ready in our system and waiting on the 911 center.
Central EMS originally predicted that they would have this system up and running by the end of June, but with no updates on a timeline of when the city will even solve this cyber issue, there's no clue on when they'll be back up to regular communications. In Augusta, Craig Allison, on your side.
All righty, thanks for that, Craig. In the latest numbers from the Downtown Development Authority, 47 new businesses set up shop in downtown Augusta. Now a new $1.7 million grant could make it easier to access those businesses. Alyssa Lyons explains what the Downtown Connector is.
Simply put, it's just an alleyway. Basically what they're going to do is they're going to take a chunk out of this big, beautiful brick behind me to build a pathway from this side of the brick to the Augusta Commons, while also creating a potential for new businesses to move in.
No handout, just stand out.
That's Reginald Middleton's motto. He says it's kind of hard to do when this is next door.
It's a gift and a curse. Some people walk by and may kind of be sketchy because it's trash all in this alley right here, so they may think we don't uphold our business the right way. We got a little logo right here on the top.
While Middleton is turning his shop from nothing into something on the inside, Augusta is trying to do the same outside.
We've got an alley that is in terrible shape. that has some stormwater issues and could really be beautified. So that when our visitors get out of their cars at the convention center deck, they have something very nice to look at and can easily access the Augusta Common.
The new plans would take out that building behind me and pave a new walkway that would meet at James Brown Boulevard and Jones Street. More so than that, it would connect those visiting downtown to businesses right beside me.
Some people just walk by and don't even know this is a business.
An alley would put people along their tracks.
It just give people more interest and want to come up in these alleys and see what businesses we have.
And hopefully bring more.
Once that gets completed, it'll be a lot of stuff to be able to feed off of, or bigger businesses will want to put their stuff down here.
Now tomorrow, Commission will make a motion to accept that $1.7 million. Once that's done, they can start on the drawing phase, and then eventually when we do see some construction, it'll take around 18 months.
Thanks for that, Alyssa. We know how popular the alley is in Aiken, so maybe trying to recreate some of that here in Augusta would be pretty cool. Well, on this, yesterday was Miracle Monday. We're introducing you now to 5-year-old Cole, who was born with a brittle bone disease. He was born with 12 broken bones and continues to get treatment here at the Children's Hospital of Georgia. As our Zana Halliburton tells us, despite the number of times Cole has broken bones, he's still tough and full of personality.
This is 5-year-old Cole. Although he was born with osteogenesis imperfecta, also known as OI or brittle bone disease, that doesn't stop him from being a kid.
I'm the winner! You're the winner! I love playing basketball with him. It is the most brilliant game I've ever seen.
When Rebecca Peace had an ultrasound at 20 weeks, doctors noticed Cole's limbs were measuring a little bit shorter. That's when she was referred to the Children's Hospital of Georgia, where she was told Cole has OI type 3.
The question was I allowed to pick up my other children? Could pressure on my stomach potentially break his bones? Could I exercise? How should I sleep? Just all these different things I didn't have to think about with my other 2 children.
OI is when bones break easily, often with no obvious cause or minimal injury. Cole was born with 12 broken bones.
And then it was, how do we hold him? How do we nurse him? How do we change his diaper? Does he wear clothes? If he's going to wear clothes, what do they look? How do you get a shirt on a child with broken arms and broken legs?
Rebecca relied heavily on help from her nurses and Dr. Bryan, who was there to answer every question.
The second that I need anything or just have a quick question, or did I do this right, or does this look right, can I come in right this second? It's always a yes.
Rebecca has learned about treating OI through the hospital as well as other parents online. If you ask Cole, he would say his mom is doing a great job.
And Mom is the sweetest.
Oh, really? Does she help you a lot?
Yeah.
Cole has had surgeries to replace rods in all long bones to help realign them and reduce the risk of breaks, as well as one surgery to replace the old rods. Since Cole was 10 months old, he's been receiving therapy at CHOG.
A for apple.
Okay.
L is for lion. E is for
He's
elephant.
doing fantastic. He's such a bright little guy and so motivated to do everything that we give to him. So we've seen just a ton of progress just because we get not only one time a week
And my
here,
mom is the best.
and his mom is the best, and they do so much good stuff at home with him too.
I can spin around really fast.
The worst part about OI is being told no and being held back and not being able to try. And so there's like this very fine balance between letting him try and also being responsible parents and keeping him safe.
Reporting in Augusta,
Bye! Pieces are out.
Zana Halliburton, on your side.
And Rebecca says her message to other parents would be to get as much information as you can to educate yourself about OI. As for Cole, he continues getting his treatments at CHOG. And if you'd like to help support kids like Cole at the Children's Hospital, we do have a link to donate on our website. You can just search Miracle Monday up there. Well, it was a busy day at Topgolf yesterday as Camp Rainbow campers from the Children's Hospital stopped by to take a swing at a club and do other camp activities while getting away from the hospital. Our Emma Ellis talked to one of the campers.
Most children spend their summers outdoors playing with friends. But for children who are battling childhood cancer like Kennedy Martin, opportunities like that may not come around very often.
A lot of times we're locked in a hospital room and it's just really hard. And to be able to go out with friends and stuff, it just means a lot to the patients and me.
Camp Rainbow is the Children's Hospital of Georgia's camp for oncology patients and their siblings. by providing a summer camp filled with fun summer activities such as Talk Golf, where children also have access to a full medical staff to keep up with their treatments. They hope to give these kids a sense of normalcy.
The kids at the hospital, they have to go through treatments and chemo and everything that no kid wants to do, but we give them an opportunity just to be a kid and come to camp and have the same camp experience that any other kid would have.
Not only do they get to experience normal summer fun, they also get to meet other kids in similar situations who they can relate to.
I love that I can just meet new people and figure out things that we have in common, and we can just talk about our problems that we had with chemo and just be able to make new relationships.
These kids don't let anything hold them back, and Camp Rainbow encourages them to know that sometimes it's okay to just be a kid.
But we want to tell these kids too, just because they have something that makes them different doesn't mean they can't do anything they want to do. And part of that is being outside and being a kid.
As for Kennedy, this camp gives her connection and a chance to prove that even cancer can't hold her back.
Being able to go out and do this, it shows that we are worth something.
Absolutely worth something there. Great thing that they do over at the Children's Hospital. If you heard us talk about it on the morning show today, obviously Zaina does a lot with them, and so it's great to see all the things they do, not just for kids in our area, but the people that come here to go to that hospital. Golden Harvest Food Bank serves 25 counties, and for the first time, a new partnership with East Georgia State College is allowing them to serve a new group. The food bank is partnering with East Georgia State to open a new food pantry on campus there. In the past, the college's food pantry has been on a donation basis. This partnership lets them get food directly from Golden Harvest to serve its students. Golden Harvest leaders say having access to a pantry on campus will make it easier for many students battling food insecurity.
Students on college and university campuses are a population that is susceptible to food insecurity. And I would go even further to say they're sometimes overlooked. So excited to see what this will do and how this will service those students facing food insecurity.
They'll have the ribbon cutting on the new pantry this Thursday. Enfinger says they are hopeful this will pave the way for them to collaborate with and establish pantries on other campuses in the area. Hey, pickleball fans, here we go. The Columbia County Racquet Center is now open. You may recognize it by its former name, the Petersburg Racquet Club. Here are some pictures of the work county crews have been doing to upgrade and enhance that complex. The tennis courts are now open for play. The future of the new pickleball courts remain closed and should be completed by early next year. A fee for play hasn't been approved yet by commissioners, so right now it is free to play. So get all the action in you can before they make a decision on that. More than 1,000 people will be biking into Thompson Friday for Bike Across Georgia. It's the first time since 2017 the community was chosen to host that ride. The tourism office has plans to host other events like food trucks, a free concert, and other activities for people to enjoy. Leaders with the McDuffie County Tourism Office say community members and small businesses are excited about the crowds coming in and hope it encourages even more tourism in the future.
It's a huge opportunity for us because these people are coming in not just from all over Georgia, but from all over the country. So it's an opportunity for us to show off what we have to other people, and hopefully they'll come back.
Vance says she hopes visitors come back for the Blind Willie McTell Festival in September. The visiting bikers will be moving on to Augusta after an overnight stay in Thompson. Okay, moving on to some state news now. This year's convention for the Republicans National Convention is the first time a former president or presidential candidate is coming to speak at the Georgia GOP convention. Speaking with experts yesterday, they say Republicans used to think they had it in the bag, and now they need to work hard to secure the votes. Our Abby Kasoris has more on that.
I'm excited for the fact that the Republican Party convention is going to be in Columbus, Georgia.
Alton Russell, Columbus Republican Party chairman, says their hotels are filling up with thousands of delegates, media, and curious spectators coming to see some of the convention's headliners.
A wonderful friend of mine and a great man, a great senator,
including former President Donald Trump and former Arizona gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake. Russell expects they could raise millions of dollars to help with voter turnout next election.
Money is always important because we try to put boots on the ground with having a staff in every county. Or
other speakers include former Senator Kelly Loeffler, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. There are two missing guests that have said they won't be attending: Governor Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
His reasons are, I think they're his reasons, not mine. And I really don't, I don't have a specific answer from him as to why he is or why he's not coming.
Year's Georgia GOP convention, people booed Governor Kemp while he was on stage. Political expert Charles Bullock says Georgia is at the center of the political universe.
We may play that same kind of role in 2024 when it comes to choosing the next president.
He says Trump's visit to Georgia shows he's hoping to get Georgia voters on his side after a big loss in 2020.
In reality, Georgia is an anti-Trump state. Trump does less well here than probably most any other state that Republicans have a shot at winning.
The event is not open to the general public. You have to be a delegate or invited as a guest to go to that convention. As for the Democrats, they are hosting a state convention as well. They have not announced the date yet on that. Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr announced the indictment of 16 outcast motorcycle gang members in Bryan County. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you, that's because the outcast motorcycle gang was one of the two groups involved in that shooting here back in May. As of now, it's not clear if this indictment includes any members who were involved in last month's shooting at Augusta's headquarters.
Stop Cop City!
There you hear it, the chants Stop Cop City on Monday. Protesters shouting that as Atlanta City Council members plan to give the green light for the last piece of funding needed for the development of the future Public Safety Training Center. Here's what some people had to say about this new development.
If the police officer that you're training is already a bad police officer on the street. Not all police officers are bad police officers, but what we in the community want is for the bad officers to be off the street.
There's going to be officers who slip through the cracks. There's officers who get weak and have a moment of weakness and might lose their temper. That's all improved by training.
Right now, the cost of the facility is about $67 million, and the city says nearly half of that is basically reallocation of funding, because once they have a central site for the training, they will no longer have to spend money on leasing other buildings. All right, let's go across the river now to South Carolina. Governor McMaster says the state is as prepared as it can be for hurricane season this year. Governor McMaster yesterday toured the state's coastal counties to discuss how South Carolina is getting ready now that we're a few days into the 2023 hurricane season. Started back on June 1st, if you remember. Mary Green reports from one of his stops in Charleston County on what state leaders say every South Carolinian needs to know.
On Monday, the governor and state emergency management emphasized hurricanes aren't just coastal events, but statewide events here in South Carolina. So all South Carolinians need to be prepared for them.
The entire state is susceptible to hurricane force winds and excessive rainfall, and we've seen that here in the recent past. And anywhere in South Carolina is susceptible to flash flooding, and we need to take that very seriously.
State leaders emphasize now is the time to prepare and know what to do before, during, and after a hurricane. They say South Carolinians need to know and remember their evacuation zone, particularly for those counties on or near the coast that are vulnerable to storm surges. And they need to know their assigned evacuation route, because if everyone evacuates via I-26, it'll get overcrowded and backed up. Highway Patrol says troopers are prepared to evacuate people along all 30 plus of the state's routes, and that these routes are ready for evacuation measures like lane reversals.
Please do not follow your GPS. GPS will take you away from these routes. So most of the time your GPS is going to take you the shortest route. In this case, you don't need to go to the shortest route. You need to stay on the route that's designated for you and your zone.
National forecasters from NOAA say they're expecting a near normal Atlantic hurricane season this year. That means 5 to 9 total hurricanes and 1 to 4 major hurricanes. Reporting in North Charleston, I'm Mary Green.
South Carolinians are strongly advised to take a close look again at those evacuation zones and those evacuation routes. You can find those by going online and visiting hurricane.sc. Let's see. There you go. Look at that, hurricane.sc. Know your zone and evacuation routes and all that good stuff. Okay, good deal. Former South Carolina mental health officer is being accused of punching juvenile patients while they were being sedated. The warrant says the several public safety officers, including Vincent Nocera, were trying to hold down the patient, and when officers released the patient, they began to kick. The warrant says that's when he used excessive force and punched the patient 4 times near the calf. Nocera was arrested Friday and charged with assault and misconduct. Grassroots teacher advocacy group SC for Ed says it will indefinitely pause its advocacy efforts, and the reason is because of burnout. The organization was founded in 2018 by former Democratic candidate for State Superintendent of Education, Lisa Ellis. It's made up of volunteer teachers. Ellis says teaching is difficult and gets harder every year, but to add advocacy for public education on top of that was an impossible expectation.
It was a David and Goliath situation, and so we're, going to step back and take a break and see if somebody else will step into that role and allow us to breathe again.
Ellis says the goal for SC for Ed was never a small group to advocate on behalf of all the teachers in the state, but rather to teach people how to advocate for themselves. A national security crisis amid the end of a Trump-era border policy has prompted 4 different states to deploy their troops to the Texas-Mexico border, South Carolina being one of them. Governor McMaster announced his decision Wednesday to help what law enforcement in Texas are calling an unprecedented level of illegal migrants. The mission is Operation Lone Star Continued, a multi-agency effort led by Governor Greg Abbott to stop the smuggling of drugs, weapons, and humans across the southern border of Texas. Major General Van McCarty, Adjunct General for South Carolina, says the unit being sent out will be company-sized, 150 soldiers for a roughly 45-day deployment.
This is primarily a mission to support the Texas Military Department with local authorities. Our intent is to support the Texas Military Department and how they utilize the soldiers will be a part of the agreement we will have, but we're still working the details of that. As far as missions go, this is, again, well within the scope of what the South Carolina National Guard is trained and prepared to do.
Governor McMaster says the mission is still in the planning phase with more details expected in the coming weeks. Major General McCarty says deployment for the emergency management mission is tentatively set for July the 1st. After a crash that killed a newlywed bride and seriously injured her husband and 2 others on Folly Beach just weeks ago, friends and family gathered to walk in honor of Samantha Miller's life. Miller was the bride that was killed on her wedding night after police say a drunk driver hit their golf cart leaving her wedding reception. The walk was hosted by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It was held with hopes the tragedy can promote change in state laws and stop people from getting behind the wheel while drunk.
I just feel grateful to be part of this, be able to show my love to my new town, to my friends back home. I'm a mother, and I grieve for her mother who is in this situation.
The driver of the golf cart that was struck by, the driver of the car that struck the golf cart was Jamie Komorowski. Police say the vehicle she was driving was traveling at 65 miles an hour when it hit that cart. Former Vice President Mike Pence and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie are expected to jump into the presidential race this week. They'll join a growing field of Republican candidates, including their once boss and by far the front runner right now in the polls, former President Donald Trump. Alice Barr is on Capitol Hill with the details.
Just as the Republican presidential contest starts heating up with several candidates set to announce this week, there's word of a potential legal bombshell for the far and away frontrunner, former President Trump. Members of the Trump legal team spotted at the Department of Justice today as the grand jury hearing evidence in the former president's handling of classified documents is expected to meet again this week after a hiatus. A decision to indict by special counsel Jack Smith would mark the first time a former president has been charged with a federal crime. Mr. Trump adamantly denies any wrongdoing, arguing he had the right to keep classified materials at his Mar-a-Lago estate.
I took the documents I'm allowed to.
Former President Trump also faces investigations into efforts to overturn the 2020 election and felony charges of falsifying business records in New York. As the legal challenges pile up, Republican candidates looking for an opening set to jump into the race this week, including past Trump allies, former Vice President Mike Pence, who filed paperwork today to make his run official, and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Several candidates now sharpening their attacks on the former president from his claims he can fix the country in 6 months.
Don't let anyone tell you they can do this in 24 hours or in 6 months or anything like that. This is going to be trench warfare.
To the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
He thinks it was a beautiful day. I think it was a terrible day. I'll always stand by that.
To praise for North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un.
Whether it's my former running mate or anyone else, no one should be praising the dictator in North Korea.
Presidential hopefuls who once praised Mr. Trump now challenging him. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
New requirements may limit the number that can make it on stage for the first primary debate in August, including strict fundraising requirements and a promise to support whoever gets that nomination. Remember, I think it was 2016, we had no, it was 2020. We had the crazy number of Democratic challengers to former President Trump. That stage was literally, I think they had 2 debates, if I remember correctly, actually. Anyway, I digress. Nikki Haley took some big swipes at Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis during CNN's town hall the other day. The Republican presidential hopeful blasted DeSantis for his feud with Disney. She slammed Trump for buddying up to dictators. Haley also said Trump and DeSantis haven't been straight with voters about the financial state of Social Security and other programs.
I think it's important to be honest with the American people. We are in this situation. Don't lie to them and say, oh, we don't have to deal with entitlement reform. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's the reality. I'm always going to tell the truth. Is it going to hurt? Yes.
At 51, Haley has said she'd bring a generational change to the White House. Most polls show that Trump is still leading the Republican field for president. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear a trademark dispute over the phrase Trump too small. The phrase comes from an exchange between Trump and Republican Senator Marco Rubio during a 2016 presidential debate. As India reels from one of its worst train disasters in decades, focus is now slowly shifting to recovery. At least 270 people are confirmed dead. A regional hospital received hundreds of survivors on Friday night's derailment. Survivors say of them, many of them lost loved ones who were on board the train when the passenger car started flipping and rolling. The government is calling for an investigation and says it'll bring justice to anybody who's responsible for this deadly catastrophe. The search for victims at the partially collapsed apartment building in Davenport, Iowa has ended. Over the weekend and early yesterday morning, search teams recovered the bodies of the 3 men who were still missing. Authorities say family members of each of the victims have been notified. One of the men, a father of a high schooler who graduated yesterday.
We will be entering a new chapter, a new phase in the process of working through the aftermath of the collapse.
We don't have any other information at this time that there is any additional people missing.
One of the people injured in the building collapse has sued the city of Davenport and the building's current and former owners. The suit claims they knew the building had structural problems and failed to warn people who lived there. Another big Hollywood union, the Screen Actors Guild, is gearing up for a fight with studios. And the Actors Union is wrapping up its vote to make it official. Jeff Wen breaks it all down.
With no end in sight for the Hollywood writers' strike, Sue Mason says she's fighting for the future of the entertainment industry.
Our labor is being devalued everywhere.
Members of the Writers Guild of America had been hoping for solidarity with other Hollywood unions, but on Sunday, the Directors Guild of America struck a tentative deal with the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers.
It frankly doesn't change much for the Writers Guild.
WGA says it's going to charge Ford with the same demands for more pay and higher residuals. On Monday, members handed out leaflets at the Apple Store at the Grove because the tech giant also streams movies and shows shows on its Apple TV Plus.
To remind the folks who are visiting those stores that, the people who are making the shows that they're going to watch on these Apple devices are not able to make a living anymore.
Similar demonstrations were done at about a dozen Apple stores around the country on the same day Apple held its developer conference.
This corporate greed has got to go.
The AMPTP has declined to comment on the tentative deal with the DGA or the stalemate with the writers, but it previously pushed back on the union demands, pointing to the recent layoffs at Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Paramount Global, which is the parent company of KCAL News. As the writer's strike enters its 6th week, entertainment attorney and journalist Jonathan Handel says the fall season for the broadcast networks may start without scripted programming.
On the other hand, the streamers such as Netflix would probably be happy to see the fall scripted broadcast season destroyed because it would drive viewers to streaming platforms. So when the companies aren't even on the same page necessarily, that makes it harder to get a deal done across the table.
Let's work on getting this deal done here, because I heard little rumblings that it'll interfere with Survivor, and I don't want that. So let's get this figured out, get these writers paid. I'll let AI do all that writing, whatever they're worried about now. Okay, we reported on 3 shootings from over the weekend, according to the Gun Violence Archive. This weekend alone, nearly 100 people died from shootings across the country. Doctors on the front lines of the crisis compare it to a deadly illness plaguing the country. CNN's Josh Campbell reports.
This is the #1 cause of death of American children, which is just unacceptable and astonishing.
Those on the front line saving children's lives, fed up with America's gun violence epidemic.
To you, gun violence is a disease.
Yes, and the country is the victim in this case.
The outrage felt by pediatrician Dr. Nicole Webb on display across the country this past weekend as demonstrators took to the streets demanding an end to the endless gun violence ravaging the nation.
Enough is enough.
Let's take it upon ourselves to inspire action so that students across the country can worry about homework and tests, not gun violence.
National Gun Violence Awareness Day began after the brutal killing of 15-year-old Hadia Pendleton on a Chicago playground in 2013. Murdered 1 week after marching with her school's band in a parade celebrating Barack Obama's 2nd presidential inauguration. Pendleton's mother speaking out.
There have been thousands of other families that unfortunately have joined this fraternity that no one wants to be a part.
But tens of thousands more have been impacted since her daughter's death. More than 18,000 people have been shot and killed so far this year. The federal government calling gun violence a public health crisis. And while guns are often politically polarizing, most Americans surveyed in a recent CNN poll agree gun control laws should be stricter. American health professionals say common sense, evidence-based safety efforts should not be partisan at all.
States with red flag laws see fewer high-profile mass shootings. States that have closed loopholes in the background check system see fewer shootings involving illegally obtained weapons.
A recent troubling trend, guns in the hands of children. In recent weeks, at least 9 teens arrested for bringing guns on campus, including a Phoenix student arrested with an AR-15.
The most helpful thing anyone can do is store their weapons securely. Your child may be comfortable around the gun. It may even be something that you purchased as a gift. It may be something that's really important to your family. They have a bad day at school. They're feeling down, and they make a decision that they can't recover from.
But even basic evidence-based safety efforts have drawn the ire of America's gun lobby.
The NRA said in this tweet that someone should tell self-important anti-gun doctors to stay in their lane. How do you respond to that?
The only lane that matters is safety. Every American citizen should be free to live their life without the fear that they might be shot to death.
Are you anti-gun?
No, I'm not. Anyone who's actually really interested in what is going to keep a majority of people safe is not going to take that approach.
Obviously, a very polarizing topic there, and so we'll have to see, what comes out of it. The FAA says it'll take days to gather and sort the wreckage in the mountains of Virginia after a small plane crash on Sunday, killing 3 passengers and the pilot. The crash happened after military fighter jets scrambled to intercept the plane after it entered restricted airspace around the nation's capital.
Federal investigators are working to determine what caused a small plane to crash in a wooded area in rural Virginia, killing all 4 people on board.
We spent all day today looking at the wreckage. It is no longer distinguishable as an aircraft.
The plane took off in Tennessee Sunday afternoon, flying to Long Island, New York at 34,000 feet. For some reason, it made a U-turn towards D.C., breaching restricted airspace. That prompted 6 F-16 fighter jets to scramble.
It's an organized, operational way of policing airspace, particularly sensitive airspace over the United States in the wake of 9/11.
Officials say air traffic controllers and other federal authorities made repeated attempts to establish contact.
National Guard fighter on guard. If you hear this transmission, contact us on 121.5.
CBS News has learned one of the F-16 pilots saw the Cessna pilot slumped over and unresponsive.
Basically, everything is on the table until we slowly and methodically remove different components and elements that'll be relevant.
During the incident, the fighter jet's supersonic speed caused a sonic boom that startled residents in D.C., Northern Virginia, and Southern Maryland. CBS News has learned the victims killed in the crash include 49-year-old Adina Azarian, her 2-year-old daughter, their nanny, and the pilot. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Washington.
Officials say it could take up to 2 years to issue a final report on what happened and why. A Michigan 10-year-old went to extreme lengths to give his mom a visit. Michigan State Police say a 10-year-old boy stole a car and led authorities on a chase. They say he told police he wanted to visit his mom in Detroit. Officers had to use the vehicle's OnStar navigation system to find him on Interstate 75. And when troopers tried to pull over the car, he wouldn't stop. Eventually, the boy was taken to the County Juvenile Detention Center. Forbes released its list of the 15 richest female celebrities, and Taylor Swift, Rihanna, and Beyonce all find themselves on the list. Rihanna worth a staggering $1.4 billion, Taylor Swift $740 million, Beyonce $540 million. Other big names on that list included Madonna, Dolly Parton, and Celine Dion. I think they need to do this list again once Taylor Swift's tour is over, because I heard rumors that she could make upwards of $1 billion just on this tour alone. I don't know if that, isn't going to increase her net worth a crazy amount, but worth looking into again. All right. Do you ever feel a little bit like your kids are spending too much time staring at a smartphone screen? Well, members of Gen Z are leading a mini revolution aimed at unplugging by looking back to technology from the early 2000s. Some Gen Zers have been forging a path away from the constant connection of smartphones in search of a digital detox. Smartphones still dominate the mobile phone market, but mobile tech companies are reporting a rise in sales in the U.S. for their most basic models.
Young people themselves are kind of self-censoring and saying, I don't really need the negative mental health and social harms that come with an always connected life.
Experts say people trying to unplug don't need to take an all or nothing approach. You can turn off notifications. You can put your phone in do not disturb. I know mine's always in do not disturb throughout the day. It really bothers my friends and family when they try to call me, but they'll get over it. You can even change the color to grayscale to make using the screen less exciting. So yeah, I mean, we talk about how much smartphones are taking over our lives, and now these kids are going back to the phones of old. I don't even know what the name of my first phone was. It was the LG something. Okay, doctors can catch rare disorders in more than 12,000 babies born every year, thanks to programs that allow that screen newborns across the U.S., and a lot of times early detection can save lives. But despite the critical need, these programs are not getting enough funding. National investigative reporter Josie Sturman discovered some states are worried they can't keep up.
You can really see a difference.
For Lisa Brackbill, the day her life changed forever can be traced back to this one photo, a picture showing her wide-eyed baby girl Tori smiling for the last time.
It was truly like a switch had flipped.
It was January 2015 when their happy, seemingly healthy 5-month-old stopped progressing, seemed to be in constant pain, clenching her little fists and crying. 6 weeks after that final smile, a diagnosis, something called Krabbe disease, a rare disorder that would take Tori within a year. As the Brackbills began a baby bucket list, they discovered the disease that ended Tori's life could have been caught in newborn screening. That's the heel prick testing done on babies across the U.S. When Tori was born, Krabbe wasn't on Pennsylvania's screening panel where the Brackbills live. but it was being tested for just over the border in New York.
And if our daughter had been born just 3 hours north, we would be living a totally different story.
The kind of story our national investigative team found because of disparities in newborn screening from state to state that create a tragic phenomenon known as death by zip code, with where you live dictating what babies are tested for at birth. Krabbe, we found, is now included in screenings done in at least 10 states, but it's not yet on a recommended list of tests the federal government wants to be uniform nationwide. Right now, 37 core conditions are recommended by the federal government, but we found not a single state in the U.S. tests for all of them. That's something pediatrician and Congresswoman Dr. Kim Schreier and other lawmakers want to change by 2025.
You know, whether you get these newborn screens shouldn't depend on what state you happen to live in.
States decide for themselves which testing they'll carry out. They also foot the cost of the work, with some help from the federal government. There's a bill in Congress, the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization Act, which should funnel millions to state screening. But it's repeatedly been held up in recent years because of debate about research using the baby blood samples.
It's incredibly frustrating to the advocacy community because so much is tied to that funding.
The federal funding helps fill the gaps in state budgets and inside state labs that we've learned are already stretched thin. Our national investigative team spent months contacting every state health department across the nation, asking their biggest challenges when it comes to adding new testing. 43 states and D.C. responded. Almost half told us funding and staff shortages are their greatest hurdles. Difficulties finding equipment, lack of lab space, and quality control for testing were also major concerns.
It's very challenging.
Especially for people like Susan Tanksley, who runs the Texas state lab that handles their newborn screening and knows the difficulties faced by screening programs across the nation.
The families we're serving are incredibly important, so we have to succeed.
Is that an airplane?
Success for moms like Lisa Brackbill, who's watched newborn screening grow and change like her own family, means getting programs the money they need to one day eliminate disparities altogether, closing yet another health divide that impacts our most vulnerable.
To see the biggest challenges facing Georgia and South Carolina when it comes to newborn screening, go to investigatetv.com and click on this story. Let's do it. Bum, 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 bum. See if we can find it state by state. Ooh, hopefully it's not in there. Ah, there you go. There you go. South Carolina mentioned funding issues. The way to look at. Georgia responded, but didn't mention one of those big three. So, not sure what Georgia's is, but South Carolina mentioned funding issues. Okay, moving on. What changes at the dentist's office could help children with autism, and how young people injured by guns aren't getting timely mental health care after trauma? Naomi Ruckham has a look at some of the day's top health stories.
Most children who have been injured by a firearm do not get timely access to mental health care. A new report published in the journal Pediatrics looked at the more than 11,000 young people injured by guns in 2020. Researchers say these children are at nearly double the risk for bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and suicidal thoughts. However, the report shows more than 60% do not get mental health services within 6 months. Children with drug-resistant epilepsy live longer after surgery for their conditions, according to new research out of Chicago. The report shows that cranial epilepsy surgery reduced the risk of death by more than 80%. Among children with epilepsy, about 20% have a form of the disease that does not respond to medication. And creating a special sensory environment at the dentist's office could help young people with autism get better dental care. A new study out of USC found adaptations like turning off overhead lights, projecting slow-moving images, and playing calming music or nature sounds reduced distress during dental visits. Autistic children often struggle with dental health and oral care because of sensory issues. Those are some of the day's top health stories. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
When it comes to a vacation, we all feel that money stress. It's often expensive to enjoy time off as a family. Rachel DePompa looks into how you can make your next trip hassle and anxiety free in this Watching Your Wallet.
Look, we all want smooth sailing on our next family vacation, but we also know things often end up costing you more than you planned. Financial coach Cherry Dale with the Virginia Credit Union says you cannot ever over-plan for a vacation. She says it's okay to have a plan A, B, and C, especially when it comes to your finances. Also, keep this in mind. When we plan for a vacation, we often just budget the plane ticket and the hotel, but Dale says plan for the food and the extras.
You can just write each person's name down, allocate breakfast, lunch, and dinner, excursions, money for shopping. When you get a number per person, you're going to add all of that up, and my advice would be to set aside another 30% on top of that amount to set aside for emergencies.
For example, let's say you know you're going to spend about $1,000 on food and extra activities. Dale says to set aside another $300 just in case things come up during a vacation. She's even talking about healthcare costs in case someone gets sick. She also says it's okay to use your credit card on a trip, just have a plan to pay it off.
Oftentimes we'll use our credit card because we get points, right, for eating out and all of that. So there's ways you can maximize your credit cards on these trips.
If you're traveling internationally, be aware of potential credit card fees for transactions. Also, Dale says, email or call your financial institution ahead of time to avoid any disruptions in service. Let them know you're traveling so your card won't be locked for suspicious transactions. One more tip, take a picture or write down your credit card numbers and expiration dates. Also make sure you jot down the phone number on the back of your credit card to your financial institution. Keep all of that in a secure place in case your wallet or purse is stolen, so you can call and cancel your credit cards immediately. With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
Some good advice there as you're getting ready for that next big trip, especially with summer coming up. Not yet, not done yet. We've all run across something online that we want to read or watch, but just don't have the time right now. Sooner than later, you just kind of forget about it. Thankfully, our consumer tech reporter, Jamie Tucker, says there is an app for that.
You can have 28 apps on your home screen, and this one deserves some of that prime real estate, especially if you're too busy to read something that you see online. This app lets you tuck it in your pocket. Pocket is a web clipper. It'll save articles, videos, photos, things you want to buy in one place where you can go back to it later. When you see something you want to look at later in a browser on your phone, such as this fascinating story on airport chargers, tap Share and select Pocket. YouTube videos to watch later, tap Share, More, and Pocket. When you have time later, you can just open the Pocket app to find everything you've clipped. And Pocket works cross-platform. If you're at work and see something on your desktop computer, you can use this Clipper app to save it with one click. Wherever you see content on another phone, tablet, computer, all of your Pocket saves can be found in your Pocket. Pocket also has recommended content based on things you've saved and things you're interested in. Pocket is free with some ads. To remove those and for a few more features, a premium subscription is $45 a year, but the free version is plenty for most people. It's an app I use every day and great for busy people. I'm Jamie Tucker, and Pocket is the app of the day.
Pocket's on a Mozilla app, which is the same company behind the Firefox browser, but it works on Chrome and Safari as well. You can find it on Apple's App Store and Google's Play Store, so it is friendly for both iPhones and Androids. All right, let's do one more here. Sometimes you have to get your hands dirty and your feet in the mud to learn something new. Eco Explorers is a new, authentic Augusta experience at the Finney Center where you can become a scientist. Our Will Volk gives us a look.
These Eco Explorers are getting ready to take a dip in the swamp.
For first timers, it could be a little intimidating. I mean, if you're not used to mucking around into the swamp, that it could be very intimidating.
This isn't Kim Dillard's first time in the swamp. She checks water quality here by scooping up bugs.
If we were to dip net and we got a whole bunch of bugs, like a big biodiversity of bugs, that kind of tells us, hey, that's a good thing.
The idea is the more bugs, the fewer pollutants in the water. Finzi Center scientists come here regularly to take samples, and now they're inviting you to do it too.
It is easy and anybody can do it.
When you're done in the swamp, you'll take your bucket of water back and put your findings under a microscope. Then your goal is to find out what you caught.
You don't have to have a special degree to do it. You just got to have the passion and say, hey, I can identify this bug. That's pretty easy.
Dillard is excited to start offering this experience for the community.
I feel like this is a grown-up version of a field trip.
An adult field trip in the swamp. In Augusta, Will Volt on your side.
Dillard says they also show you around the lab, and they are starting to offer sessions again in late August. They're taking the summer off because of the heat, understandable. If we're looking at 90s this week, and we're not even into July or August yet, so definitely going to get hotter. But okay, you can find out about these stories and much more up on our website, WRDW.com. Also be sure to download our streaming app on your favorite streaming device, Apple TV, Roku, Fire Stick, whatever it is, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel, WRDW News 12 on YouTube. We're streaming right now, but yeah, we stream every day, so if you want to check that out, they're both free. They gave you a great insight into what's going on in our community, so why not go ahead and give those a download. Okay, that's doing it for headlines. 5 minutes or so until the morning mix. If you want to swing over to the TV side of things or check it out on the streaming app, we have it up on there. And I'll be back a little bit later on in the morning with some more News 12 Now. See you back here then.